on, do you know? I don't know. Is live stream on? It's about 12:35. Is that it? Yeah, Zion. It's on? Okay, thank you. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Roy LeEchsor Ben Esteshi Abitzim Yeminuch Sinaleni. The song of David. Hashem is my shepherd, I shall not lack. In lush meadows he lays me down, beside tranquil waters he leads me. Nafshi Yeshoviv Yancheni B'maglei Tzedek L'ma'an Shemoy Gam Ki'er B'geit Samoah Sli'ir Ra Ki Ato'im B'di Shivtecha Mishantecha Heima Yenachamuni. He restores my soul. He leads me on the path of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil because I know you are with me. Together your rod and your staff serve to comfort me. Tarach lefanei shulchan neged tzoroi, dishanta b'shem en roshi kosi revoya. You prepared a table before me in the full view of my tormentors. You anointed my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Ach tov v'ches yudifuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavni b'veis Adonai le'orech yamim. Merely goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, to be able to dwell in the house of the Almighty for an eternity of days. We gathered to take final leave of Shirley Hershkovitz, Sheva Bas Yosef. I had the opportunity, the pleasure of knowing for probably over 25 years. It was a long, wholesome relationship. Though Shirley was not totally observant in that full sense of the religious sense of the word, but there are certain things that came to certain things, kashrus, for example, keeping a kosher home, which she took such tremendous pride in. It wasn't just something which was, somewhat of a kosher home, a kosher style home. Kosher meant to her, she's going to do it, she's going to do it all the way. She would oftentimes call with questions: is this acceptable? Is that not acceptable? She wanted to make sure that if she does it, that it's going to be the right way. Which is not something which is not that common to see. But that's where Shirley was. When she did something, she put herself into it wholeheartedly. It wasn't something that she just did half-heartedly. And she was like that in so many ways also. When it came to her family, that certain sense of a fierce loyalty and protectiveness about her family. There was nobody, not that she would necessarily, that she agreed with everything that a family would do, not that everything was necessarily that she was acceptable of it. Acceptable. When it came to the outside, she was there, and there was nobody that would be able to step in at all. We find in the Eshes Chayil, the famous song written by Shlomo Melech in Mishlei, the description of the woman of valor. Rabbi tell us, our forefather Abraham sang it actually by his Levi, when he took leave of his wife Sarah. Just there are certain passages that just seem to jump out at the concept itself of the Jewish woman of valor. Botach bo leiv baila v'shalom lo yachzor. Her husband had that full sense of trust in her. That sense of that the family knew that there was a certain dependability. And that was something which is so important to create that sense of stability in a Jewish home. Her children would rise to sing her praises, as would her husband. Shirley was the person that you always knew where you're standing with her. She would say it just like it is. Very fair-minded, a person that was even if it not necessarily agree, but should definitely give a fair chance. But she was certainly outspoken, certainly a chance if she would speak her mind if there's something, if something bothered her or something that she she was agreeable to, or that you knew exactly where you're standing with her, which again is that sense of equality, of a person that that you don't pull any punches, so to say. The rabbis tell us about in the Torah, when the Torah tells us about the relationship between Yosef and his brothers, which was not optimal. It was not an optimal relationship. They were not able to speak to him at peace, though. And the rabbis tell us this was, although it might sound something negative, it was actually it was a positive thing. They knew exactly where they were holding. They didn't hide behind anything at all. I'm sure there was that kind of person too. She didn't hide behind punches. She knew exactly what she felt and what her feelings were about something. She was the woman, though, with such dignity. Just in my mind, I just always remember seeing a tall, stately woman with dignity and royalty that led her life like that. There was a certain sense of a modesty that also, again, personifies the Jewish woman of valor. That sense of tznius, that sense of a modesty. She didn't broadcast this, didn't wear it on her sleeve, so to say, but nevertheless, then it seems like a bit almost like a contradiction. In some ways, she was very fair-minded, she speak her mind, but there was never lost that sense of dignity till the very end. I was talking a little early before with Neely. Neely told me even if she did not live, she was not a healthy person through most of her life. I didn't realize that. Until the past few years, when she obviously health pretty much she was able to function properly. But in the early years, I didn't really know that she was not in the best of health, because it's not something that it was noticeable. She was dignified, and she lived the way she wanted to, the way she wanted people to see her, to be able to know what kind of person that she was. But even at the end, even when she was sometimes not even 100% lucid, that sense of connection to the family, always, how are my children, how are my great-grandchildren, are the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. There was a tremendous sense of pride, nachas. She had an appreciation of what nachas was. Again, sometimes these things might be just, you think that are kind of obvious, but it's not obvious. And there's certain things in the world that we can't take for granted anymore. That sense of being able to have appreciation of children of Doros, and children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren that are following on the Derech HaYosher, following on the straight and narrow path, that bring a certain sense of nachas to the parents, to the grandparents. That's not something to be taken lightly. It's not something to be taken that you can assume. And she didn't, but she had a tremendous sense of pride in it. In the Torah portion this week, beginning of the portion, we're taught about when Aaron was given the mitzvah of lighting the menorah. Ba'aloscha el haneros, when he goes up to light the menorah. Amul panei menorah yiyu shivas haneros. The candles will be facing towards the center. Many of the commentaries talk about that, the idea of the menorah presenting different branches of wisdom, all facing towards the center. There's that sense also in the Jewish family of being able to, despite the fact each candle is independent, each candle is separate, nevertheless the element of facing towards the center, though, of moving towards a central theme. Theme over there seems to be talking refers to Torah, all different wisdom, different forms of wisdom, all stem from and all face towards Torah, towards understanding of Torah. It's like that in the Jewish family also. Different branches of the family, so to say. Different branches, again, raising our children, there's no guarantee about our children, how every different child sometimes has a different path of their own, so to say. And they were never meant to be, it's interesting, the Talmud actually tells us the candles, the menorah, were not necessarily, they were not necessarily made of the same part as the menorah itself. They were screwed on, they would take them off regularly. There is the element of independence, so to say. But as long as the important thing is the Yi'ul Pnei Menorah, the important thing is that they have to be able to be sent towards the center. Shirley grew up, my parents came from Europe. She was the first of the family that was born in America, youngest in the family. She grew up pretty active in the Shomer Hadati movement. Although she was, again, as I mentioned, not an observant person in the full sense of the word, but in many ways, though, she still had understanding. There was still, her background was something which lingered over, which hovered over, so to say. She was never too far from it. And therefore, as such, that was something, again, that gave her that sense of connectedness to her family, to her appreciation for her family, appreciation for the derech, the way. Their son Mark and Neely, and their children and grandchildren chose to live their lives. That her Frida is not with us anymore. Now she had family. There was that sense, even it didn't follow the same path necessarily. But again, there was that sense of family, that sense of responsibility, sense of being togetherness of a family was something which was so important to her. And something that even till the very end, that she made sure to keep that sense of a connection. It's never easy taking leave of a parent. Thank God she did live a fruitful life, living over children, grandchildren, quite a few great-grandchildren, thank God. But a mother's always a mother. And I'm certain the memories, there's Mark and Neely, are tremendous insofar as their devotion to the mother. Living out of town, they're coming back so frequently. When she was in the nursing home, when she was just being able to keep one eye on, always keep an eye. Walking on Shabbos quite a bit to be able to see, to be able to make sure she's okay. That was something, again, when a person dedicates themselves to the family, generally speaking, it comes back also. And she merited it. She was Zechah. She something that she was able to appreciate even over here in this world, to be able to see that dedication that her children and family showed to her also. I wish as a Kadosh Baruch Hu should bring a sense of comfort, a sense of consolation to the family. Kadosh Baruch Hu should wipe away the tears of the mourners. And when he takes final leave over here, there's that recognition. They always understand the animamin, the fulfillment, the understanding that the belief that leaving in this world is about temporary. The world itself is about a temporary world. And ultimately we'll all begin reunited again, maybe speedily in our days. The burial will be at Zion Memorial. Afterwards, the family will be going back to the Bennett's addresses. 4390 Churchill. They'll be here till Monday morning. Monday morning they'll be returning to New Jersey for the conclusion, to finish up the Shiva. Please rise for the Kamali. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
So, if I had to summarize my mom's life in one word, it would be successful. And when I talk about successful, in our very materialistic world, we immediately think of money. But my mom was more successful than people that have a lot of money. One of the ways that she was successful was that she triumphed over very, very serious health condition that Rabbi Nissenbaum spoke of. When I was 6 and my mom was 29, very young, that 10-year period from when I was 6 until 16, my mom, so from 29 to 39, she had 20 major surgeries. And what made it even more difficult was that the medical profession had not been able to diagnose what her condition was. So in addition to the physical challenge, there was this incredible emotional difficulty in continuing to be sick for so many years. Finally, at the end, they were able to diagnose her with Crohn's disease. But she was able to maintain, and I think this is like one of the fundamental mitas, was her confidence and her ability to maintain her belief in life, her happiness. In spite of all these things, she was still always available for my sister and I. My mom was unusually successful at friendship. Just before she passed away, I think 2 or 3 days before she passed away, she had a very, very hard time being herself. There was very little left. And one of the things I asked her was, do you remember the names of any of your friends from elementary school? Right away she says, sure, Gloria Milton. My mom was friends with Gloria Milton from the time they were in 3rd grade until the very end of her life. I mean, that's a tremendous personal meta to be able to maintain, to build a friendship and maintain a friendship for all those years. And the same thing is true with her relationship with my father. They met when she was 14 and he was 16 in Hashomer Hadati. They married when she was 18 and he was 20. And they had a wonderful marriage. It's, there are 2 parts to a marriage. One is actually staying in it, but the other more important part is, well, what's going on inside the marriage. They were an excellent couple. We have this odd concept in Yiddishkeit of Ezer Kenegdo. In the secular world, everybody should be on the same path in a marriage. We've got this odd concept that you should be in opposition in a marriage, a partnership in opposition. And my mom was perfect for my dad. My dad had an unfortunate tendency, like many people, where he felt everybody had a better deal. Other people made more money, other people paid less taxes, other people had easier lives. And my mom would say no, and she would point out correctly, Fred, look at this. Look how well you're doing. My parents never made a tremendous amount of money. By the time they retired, they owned 3 houses, 0 mortgages. They went on vacations all over the world. And she still had to tell him, look how successful you are. So had she been aligned with him, I know couples, unfortunately, where if the husband were to say those things, the spouse would say, oh, yeah, honey, this is terrible. Other people have it better. But my mom was never like that. So she was able to give my dad happiness because of her, and it was also with her children, my sister and I, but also her nieces and nephews. It got a little bit annoying to me. I have cousins who would say to me, over and over, my mother was the best mother ever. It's like, well, there's looking at a mother from the outside and then kind of being in the relationship. She was a great mother. But to my cousins, she was the best mother ever. They would rely on her for advice. She was tremendously, and I think the basic cause for all of these wonderful virtues is one extraordinary mita, and that is the mita of forgiveness and also of not speaking Lashon Hara. Several things happened to my mom and dad that, and I only know their side, but where they felt they were treated extremely wrongly by close people. And I didn't find out about this until I was an adult, and it never affected my mom's relationship with these other people. You would have no idea. You know, many of us go through life almost looking for excuses to be Borges. Oh, look what he said. Look what he did. I'm never going to talk to this person again, you know, or I'll, you know, talk to them, but it's awkward because in your heart you don't really forgive them. My mom wasn't like that. I mean, it's extraordinary. And she would never say a bad word about a person, because that's also part of it. It's one thing to say, oh, I'm not going to be angry at this person, but then you kind of make it hard for yourself because you talk about them to your kids or your spouse. My mom never did that. And she had a very realistic view of human nature. It was extraordinary. Her understanding of what people are really like. I can remember, unfortunately, sitting here at Berkowitz. My sister became very ill in her 40s. She had pancreatic cancer, and unfortunately, you know, we live in a time of miracles where most people who get cancer get treated and they're fine. Unfortunately, pancreatic cancer is still a death sentence in almost every case, over 90%. My sister had 1 year to live, and my mom decided, or just the way she was, it was not going to derail her life. And I'll give you an extraordinary example of this attitude. We were sitting right here. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And people are, you know, wishing my mom and dad condolences. And a friend says to, my mother is saying to everybody, you know, a parent should never bury a child, right? That's what we think. This woman said, you know, I would never do this, of course, but people often say the exact wrong thing. Who knows where the brakes are on people's tongues? She says to my mother, sitting right there, well, you know, that's not true historically. Until modern times, it was very common for parents to bury a child. Now, 99.9% of the people would say, if not verbally, at least inside, you know, you're a jerk, basically. You know, I mean, you're here, my daughter just died and you're sharing this with me. My mother thinks about it. She says, you know, you're right. Because she was listening to what actually had been said. And that's true. Until modern times, it was in Europe. We know stories where families would have 12 children and 6 survived. And so the lady said this to my mother. It was in an inappropriate place, in an inappropriate time. But, you know, that's the attitude of not being Borges. Yeah, you know, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. So another thing that my mom was very wise about was money. They were very careful. They never made a tremendous amount of money, but they would say things that still make an impact on me to this day. She would say, you only buy one thing on credit at a time, and you wait till that's paid off, and then you buy something else. So, you know, these were lessons that I still follow. Now, I hesitate to say this because it's a levaya, but my mom wasn't perfect. I'm only going to mention one area, okay? My family has a sad history of misnaming. I've never heard of any other family that's like that. There is a large list of people that are incorrectly named in my family. My mom, for example, she was born 1 year after my bubby came to the United States. My bubby spoke no English. She decided she wanted to name my mom after Shirley Temple. And she misspelled my mom's name so that I could understand because, you know, she was an immigrant. I'm misnamed. There's a machlokas between my mother and her very own father about what my name is. So when my dad got his aliyah and was giving over my name, my mother, I was named after my Zaidi's father. And to this day, my mother, well, till they both passed away, there was a disagreement between my mom and dad about what my Alta Zaidi's name was. So in my mom's mind, I was supposed to be named Mordechai. But then they came back and told her that my name was Chaim Mordechai. Like I said, to the end of her life, she and my Zaidi fought over what my Zaidi's father's real name was. But the worst example of this is my poor cousin Gitel. She was a Holocaust survivor. She was at Auschwitz. She comes to the United States after the war, gets married, and has her first child, a beautiful little baby girl. So naturally, she goes to her American-born first cousin to help choose a perfect name. So, and my mother's like, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. What name does she suggest? My cousin was legally named Honey. That poor kid, the day she turned 18, she went to the courthouse to change her name. Who names a human being Honey? You know, Gitel didn't suffer enough. And she was also a successful mother, and she was successful with her grandchildren, all of whom are very close. An example of that is all my children, our children, came in for our oldest grandson Tuvia's bar mitzvah, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Every one of them found time to go visit their bubby in the hospital. I had a very good relationship with my mother. There was a period of time where she was wrong about a number of issues, and I was right, and I had to endure her disagreement with my many wrong choices. But we got through that and ended up having a very, very good relationship. So it's, I'm going to conclude by saying it's very difficult to sum up the life, a 91-year life in just a few minutes. As I said, my mom was very ill. I'll mention one other story that I think you'll enjoy. My mom was an unusually honorable person. There's this idea a person's word is their bond. Unfortunately, it's difficult for many of us. Well, it's not in the contract, so it's not exactly in the contract. When I was 6 years old, we lived in Warren, Ohio. I went with my mom to Warren is the county seat for Trumbull County. It's a magnificent courthouse with a nice park, and it's full of pigeons. I said to my mother, Mom, if I catch a pigeon, could I keep it? Why fight, right? Yeah, okay, sure. So I asked her for money to buy, there was a guy selling peanuts. I got a little bag of peanuts. I walked onto the grass, and I took the peanuts and I poured them between my legs. There was about 3,000 pigeons surrounding me. I dropped down on my knee, and I caught a pigeon. Now, I'm a parent of 5 kids. I can tell you, unfortunately, if I had made that promise, I would have done my best to talk my mom out of it, to talk my kids out of it, right? It's dirty, it's whatever. My mom did not say a word because she had said if I caught a pigeon, I could keep it. So, but her life was filled with happiness, both for herself, but most importantly, the way she made her family and friends happy, and that gift of happiness was her greatest success of all.
Emoli rachamim shochin b'amroimim hamzei menucha nechona kan fe'ashchina b'malos kedoshim toim kazirak yamazhirim es nishmas sheva bas Yosef shachal ha'olama bavur shekol kol mispalim bavur bezgan eden toim nishmasa menuchasa lechem bala rachamim Yosef b'sei second havla elamim v'yitzor b'sor chayim es nishmasa Adonai unachalasa V'sanuach amishkava b'shalom v'neimar amen. God of mercy dwells upon high. Please grant proper rest on the wings of the Shekhinah, the lofty souls of the holy and the pure ones who shine like the glow of the firmament, to the soul of Shirley Hershkovitz, who went to a world. May her resting place be in Gan Eden. May the Master of Mercy shelter in the shelter of his wings for eternity. May he bind to the eternal bond of life. May the Almighty be her heritage. And may she rest in peace on a resting place. I want to say Amen.
Follow me, please. If you're a pallbearer, you need to step right this way.
You'll go that way.
Pallbearers right this way.
Family will follow behind her. And behind that, the present, please.
Family and friends exit this way. Oh, no, you're fine.
Ever since I got older.
Right. It's right down there. Hello, that was fast. What was that look for?
I was surprised to see you guys tonight.
They brought the casket off, but they fixed them.
Yeah, well, that's all you. I know, I saw that.